Dynamics CRM developers, what does it take to become one? Developers are very useful. They're very powerful in terms of what they can do when it comes to extending out Dynamics CRM, whether it's sales, whether it's field service. There's a whole a mixture of different ways in which we can actually go and do this. So what we want to do today is just share some personal tips, tricks that I have, things that you can do to try and get yourself in that position where you can hopefully excel as a developer in the Dynamics CRM, customer engagement, whatever we want to call it, sort of space. So a little bit about me on the slide here. So hello, my name's Joe. I am a business applications MVP, got all these nice, lovely acronyms after my name. I do a lot of work with Dynamics CRM, mainly project operations, but also like to dip my toe into other more techie things as well. You can scan the code there. I also have a link tree. Linktree is very popular today, so give that code a scan. You'll find a link to all my socials. Happy to connect with anyone after today. If you've got any questions or just want to find out a bit more about some of the topics, then happy to have a chat. So why are developers so important? Well, when we think about an application like Dynamics Sales, customer service, it's always going to be hopefully meeting maybe around 80-90% of the requirements that a business would need. There's always going to be that slight gap there, and it's something we always need to be mindful of. You've been on the tube, heard the announcement, mind the gap. It's the same when it comes to our Dynamics apps. We need to be aware that we're not always going to be able to achieve 100% of the requirements out of the box, and this makes developers really important in terms of being able to fill those gaps, do some more complex things, do some automations, maybe make some UI sort of tweaks. So for this reason, having development experience with Dynamics CRM, any of the different apps, is going to be really nice and essential. But it's not going to be something that necessarily you can just do overnight. You need a few different things, in your arsenal to help you as part of this journey. Generally speaking, I tend to find that if you're always inquisitive, if you're willing to maybe dip your toe into the deep end, move yourself outside of the comfort zone, you'll be able to succeed quite easily. It's not always about sort of jumping all the way in the deep end, but maybe just slowly submerging yourself, hopefully to a point where you can still breathe, hopefully. What I find as well, sometimes if you've got a business problem to solve, something that's maybe quite challenging, but also maybe could be quite interesting and quite cool if you actually find a resolution to it. So trying to find those business problems is quite sort of good. Helping hand, we can't always do this on our own, so it's important that we do have support from people, whether they are sort of friends, families, colleagues. I'm always willing to get any help I can if it's going to help me sort of move forward, and this applies, I think, particularly as well to developers. And I think as well the importance of the Power Platform when it comes to development for the Dynamics CRM apps, it cannot really be understated. All of this is built on top of the Power Platform. It's likely going to be the very first destination we go to from an extensibility standpoint. And for those of you on the call who are as old as me, will also remember things like XRM, in the olden days. So again, having an understanding in terms of how we can extend out the platform is going to be important. What used to be XRM, we now sort of call Power Platform, data-first extensibility, all that sort of good stuff. So Power Platform is really important, essential. We've got a lot here that we can potentially use. Not enough time today really to go into really great depth around all of this, but certainly my anticipation would be that a Dynamics CRM developer needs to be familiar with at least probably 3 or 4 of what we see here on the slide. And we're talking about quite sort of deep level expertise. Knowing how we can use Power Apps, knowing how we can do more fancy and amazing things from a Dataverse standpoint. Maybe even also knowing how we can build websites using Power Pages. There's a lot here that Power Platform lets us do as developers, which again may make our lives easier in terms of being able to extend out the Dynamics CRM apps more easily, and also as well maybe actually means that we don't have to write any code. A lot of this stuff actually is going to be possible to use the low-code technologies to help us with this journey. So the Power Platform is a really great thing at our disposal, integrates nice and seamlessly with all of the Dynamics CRM or customer engagement applications, and is really going to help move us forward in that regard. So let's get to the good stuff then. what do you need to succeed? I've got here sort of 10 tips, 10 top tips, if you will, things that I think you should think about, things that you should try and devote yourself towards that can hopefully get you to a point where you can really start to succeed as a developer. And let's just go through each of these one by one now. So learn a language. It's useful to know some form of programming language. I mean, the clue's kind of in the name, developer. Developers usually need to know some sort of code, perhaps. I started out originally learning SQL, SQL Server, doing SQL Server development. That's quite a useful, I guess we'll call it a gateway programming language. It's very good in terms of being able to introduce you to some fundamental concepts. A lot of the projects which I tend to be involved in will always have some element of knowing how to write SQL queries. So it's been quite a good language to learn from that regard. But you could maybe go in different directions. You could go maybe into C#. TypeScript is quite a cool one these days. HTML and CSS. Even if you've maybe come from maybe a non-traditional background, you just happen to know some really good, how to do Excel forms and stuff like that. Again, that is really helpful there. And it'd be remiss if we didn't actually mention PowerFX as part of this. PowerFX is the low-code programming language that we've got for the Power Platform. What's interesting about PowerFX now is that we're seeing it come up more and more and more. Used to be just that we had it for Canvas apps, but now we can use PowerFX to create low-code plugins. We can use it to create formula columns in Dataverse. Even Power Automate Desktop is getting in on the action now. You can use PowerFX within there. So really over time, it's going to become more and more important. So do yourself a favor here, learn a language. Quite similar to if you were to, as you understand, if you were to learn, a spoken language, once you learn one, it makes that journey and that process of learning more languages a lot more easier. And certainly that would align with my experience when I first approached things like C# and all that sort of stuff. Okay, find a mentor. So this was probably my biggest mistake on the journey, not actually getting help from somebody who could really help me along my way, give me some guidance in terms of, okay, what I need to be focusing on. And for those of you who are Harry Potter fans like me, there's that thing in the film, help will always be given at Hogwarts to those who ask for it. Help will always be given to those who deserve it. And I think as well, that applies for the community as well. There's a lot of really great people, some on the call today who are more than happy to provide assistance, help and guidance. You've got people going even further and doing things like, for example, Mark Smith's 90-day mentoring challenge, to really help people as part of that. So the key thing is, just if you find yourself maybe at a bit of a loose end, you just need somebody to maybe, set you on the path, give you some assistance, find a mentor. They can point you in the right direction. We like to help. Myself, for example, I do like to help people. Maybe to not repeat mistakes that I made, and maybe to move faster forward. So it's always a good idea just to get that somebody in your corner who can hopefully give you a bit of a helping hand there. Next, events, community events. So this is an event. So if you're here, this is your first event you've ever attended, then well done. But the key thing is, don't make it your last event. Developers usually have this, maybe the cliche of being, okay, locked in a cupboard somewhere downstairs in the basement, sort of coding away. What I actually find is that being in the mode where you can network with people, where you can go to these events and feel confident just to maybe say hello to people, talk to people, or even sort of, God forbid, and actually do a presentation. This is a really great way in which you can sort of get yourself out there as a person, how you can develop further, develop skills that are going to be useful for you in different situations, whether you're sort of working with a customer, whether you're just sort of in a job interview sort of mode, and also a great place to learn. I go to these events all the time. There's always some little nugget there, something which, seeds that will get planted in my head, things that I can go away and start to explore a lot further. And we've already heard about all the amazing events already that are happening, just in this half of the year. A lot of them will be free. A lot of them will have, the ability to, for you to go there. And we're talking about this happening on a global scale as well. So do explore these events, do try to sort of attend them. They will help you. They'll hopefully be able to give you something that you can hopefully take away from a skills standpoint, something useful as you are continuing your journey as a developer. Next, be in the right environment to grow. So admittedly, sometimes this can be a lot easier said than done. Certainly being in a team, being part of a sort of whether it's in a company or or wherever, the right team that can hopefully align with your goals in terms of your personal development goals, and also a team that's got your back in terms of what helping you to pursue those goals is going to be very sort of helpful. And I've been in situations before in my career where sometimes I've had to, go down a few steps. You sometimes go 2 steps back just so I can move forward. If you're in that position, you can do that very sort of comfortably. Then I would recommend it. And sometimes you as well, when it comes to your career, when it comes to you wanting to, improve your knowledge and to actually develop as a person, you have to take risks. Life is sort of a bit of a journey in that regard. Some risks will be bigger than other. You have to sort of, I guess, assess your risk appetite, your tolerance for risk, taking into account all the usual stuff, families, bills, all the stuff that, obviously drags us down. But if you are in a position where you can take a risk and it's going to be comfortable for you to do so, then embrace it. And we all make mistakes. I've made mistakes in my career. Happy to talk in length about them at any particular time. None of us are perfect. So, the only way sometimes in which you can try to move forward is by taking that chance. And, sometimes it'll work out, sometimes it won't, but it's fine. That's life. This is how we hopefully move forward, as people. Tools. Okay, so developers need to have some really great tools. So we're not just talking here about things like Visual Studio and all that sort of stuff, but actually specific tools that can help us when we're sort of, working with the platform, when we're sort of building things out. So this can range from things like the XRM toolbox, which is a really great long-standing tool that helps us when it comes to working with the Dynamics CRM applications. Microsoft provides some really great tooling that targets the data-first platform, but is also useful for us as we're developing for Dynamics CRM. Things like the configuration migration tools tool, the ability to create these solution package files. Lots of really great stuff on the links here. I'll try to see if there's some way we can get these slides shared out after the fact, but a lot of really great things here that can hopefully help you do things faster, make your life easier, and ultimately ensure you've got the right things in your arsenal there. Next, Microsoft Learn. So, compared to, let's say, 10, 15 years ago when I was just starting out, in this sort of industry, what we have now got from a learning material standpoint on the Microsoft Learn website is actually pretty impressive. We've got entire modules, courses covering all the major topics that we need, not just relating to Dynamics 365, but also like Power Platform, Artificial Intelligence, Gen AI, Azure, M365, basically any topic that you want to learn about. There's going to be a Learn material available free of charge on the Microsoft website that you can use. And that will typically include things like maybe videos, it will include maybe lab exercises, knowledge checks as part of a really great tool that you can use to sort of just, increase your learning. So, and with all of this stuff available to you, there's really no excuse for you not to use it. It's there, it's going to help you, and it's going to be really great a thing that you can sort of use. And as part of that, you can just sort of start off at a low level, develop from there, get into the more complex stuff as you need to. And the specific sort of content as well, again, on this link, which we'll try and get shared out to you afterwards, which will give you hopefully some recommended content that you can go through if you're just starting out as a developer. But use this resource. It's there. It's designed to help us, and it can be really useful as we're approaching new topics for the very first time. Now, we've got free stuff available to us as well, but we can also as well attend paid courses as well. And actually, we do have an exam and a course which is aligned pretty closely to the types of topics and the types of things that are going to be useful when we're developing, Dynamics CRM against Dynamics CRM as a platform. And this is the PL400 exam. So this provides a nice structured 5-day course delivered by an industry professional who's going to be hopefully really knowledgeable, be able to share some really nice real-world experiences. And what's nice about this course in particular is that it not just covers the more technical stuff, but also the functional stuff, the stuff that we can do in the Power Platform without writing code that, as developers is going to help us along in that journey, as well as also some hands-on labs and practice and all that sort of good stuff as well. And what's even better, what you can then do after you take this course, you can actually go and take the exam. Now, exams sometimes do get a bit of a bad press sometimes, but I think that they're good primarily for 2 reasons. Number one, it's industry recognized. It gives you, it's in terms of, people will recognize it. Potential employers, particularly in partners, will want to have people in their business with these exams, because it's an important thing for them as an organization, as they're trying to get different things like solution partner designations and all that sort of good stuff as well. And it's great as well in terms of, for your own brand. If you are in a situation where you're looking to interview, change jobs and stuff like that, having a few exams, on your CV, on your resume is potentially going to help you move forward. Particularly as well, if you're maybe have some doubts or concerns around your experience level, this might just edge you forward compared to other candidates. Particularly as well, if you can weave in a story and a narrative that, okay, well, actually, I studied for the exam in my spare time, I invested in myself to do this. You can turn this into a really great story in an interview scenario that can hopefully help yourself move forward. So I'm a big fan of the exams. So certainly would recommend this in particular, the PL100 exam, as one that you can potentially take to help you with your moving forward and getting you into that, let's say, first role or into a better role where you're doing this day in, day out. Next, developer environments. So this is where we can actually go and get hands-on practice when it comes to working with the different Power Platform services. Now, one caveat with this is that developer environments don't support the ability to deploy and install out Dynamics 365 applications. So we won't be able to use these, for example, to deploy out Dynamics 365 sales, but they are a good way of being able to maybe go and maybe do some Dataverse customizations, create some apps, create some flows, experiment with things like ALM, all the topics that from a development standpoint that are incredibly useful from a Dynamics CRM standpoint is going to be useful and also apply here as well. So potentially, as long as your tenant administrator in your company hasn't disabled it, you can go and set up 3 of these in your environment that you can then sort of use. Some restrictions around the storage and what you can actually do in there, but these are a really great thing for us to use. Again, it gives us the ability to get hands-on, test things around, build stuff and just, get that hands-on experience, which is really quite essential, as we're learning and hopefully developing against this platform. Next, hackathons. So these sometimes crop up on different sort of events, community events and stuff like that. But they are a really great way of just going, join a team, getting a broad set of requirements and actually go off and actually build a solution, work with other people in a team, and hopefully as well learn some really good stuff as well. I was quite fortunate to be at a hackathon in Norway earlier this year, the Arctic Cloud Developers Challenge, ACDC, and that was probably the most fun 4 days I've had for quite a long time, just getting hands-on, building some stuff, testing out and experimenting with stuff that maybe I've heard about but not had an opportunity in a project to work with there. So keep an eye out at these community events. If you see a hackathon, sometimes Microsoft also do these hackathon events on an annual basis. Get involved. You won't regret it. It's a really good, fun day, 2 days, however long, and gives you a good opportunity, like I say, to get really hands-on. And then finally, be the problem solver. Instead of being that person at work who's just sat there moaning about, why things are so inefficient, why we're doing things in a certain way, actually, step up and just take some action there. See what you can do with what you've learned in the platform. See what you can try and automate. Things involving paper-based processes are generally ripe territory in this regard, and try and get to a point where you can solve a problem, resolve things, improve things in the sort of workplace. And again, this will be something that can be really good as part of your story in a resume or an interview-based scenario. You can talk about, how you actually used what you learned as a developer, on, for example, Microsoft Learn to solve some business problems, and the end result is part of that. So really good way in which you can go and actually just sort of, again, put your skills into practice, get yourself into a position where you want to make yourself more employable, move into a new role, and do some, hopefully, some pretty cool and interesting things as well. So in conclusion then, when you're thinking about your career, when you're thinking about, you as a person, you sometimes do need to be bold, be brave, move outside of your comfort zone. I've surprised myself in the past, doing things which I wouldn't have done 15 years ago. In actual fact, it's now, it's all these concerns in our minds that tends to sort of just prevent us from doing this. So just think about ways in which you can maybe gradually move outside your comfort zone. You'll find yourself that you're maybe surprising yourself in terms of what you can do. Key thing here, formal IT background is not a prerequisite. You don't need to have done IT before or do computer science. As proof, for example, I've got a degree in history and a master's in ancient history, so completely the most pointless topics whatsoever from an IT standpoint, and yet here I am today. So just don't let anybody sort of grind you down in that regard. You can achieve it regardless of your background. Learn from others, get help where you need to, find ways in which you can sort of move yourself forward by working and aligning with people who, and ultimately ensure you're in the right environment to grow. So someone always told me you should end every presentation with a call to action. So this is my call to action down here. First, buy yourself a teach yourself code book. There's a really great one that SAMs do, Learn SQL in 10 minutes, I think it's called. And literally that's what it does. It's a really great way of being able to quickly learn something and all that sort of stuff. So commit yourself towards doing that. Go through that Microsoft Learn learning path that I mentioned before. Link will be on the slide down here. Identify from what we saw earlier on your next event that you want to attend, and commit yourself towards going towards that. Fix a problem. Use what you know about Dynamics, about Power Platform, whatever it is, to fix a problem in your business or in a project where Dynamics CRM is currently being used. And if you need help and support, find someone who can give you a hand. There's plenty of people, as I mentioned on the call today, in the wider community who would absolutely love the opportunity and the chance to give you a helping hand. So yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So I hope that's been useful. I hope that's given you some inspiration in terms of how you can move forward as a developer in your own career. Linktree, that QR code is there again. Happy to connect with anyone after today. But otherwise, thanks for listening and hope you have a great rest of your day.
That was awesome. Thank you so much. That was so great. There were so many really awesome practical tips. And I'm obsessed with your use of GIFs and your very casual little sarcastic comments and emojis all the way through. That call to action was so brilliant. That really gives people a starting point to jump off from. So thank you so much. I'm really grateful.